Allah Yimla Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai Ba'ashem Rakah Padash and Shalom Shabbat Shalom unto the hopeful elect. It's possible I was gonna be I'm gonna do this real quick, man. I was just looking into a lot of different articles, man, and figure, just on how the system, everything that we do, ties into this devil's agenda, this devil's system, man. From the controlled opposition aspect of it, how he uses plans and targets, a certain group of people. Those people being the Israelites, Hebrew Israelite men and women, so-called blacks, Hispanics, Latinos, and Native Americans. How he purposely targets you in the system, and it's, amongst other things, designed for us to. The system is designed for us to fail, and that's why the Lord was calling us, He was telling us to come up out of it. I got some verses I'm gonna tie into it. I'm gonna start off with this one. This is Iraq. It's Iraq chapter 40, verse 1. It's the verse 11. It says, all things that are of the earth shall turn again into the earth, shall turn again to the earth again. It says, and that which is of the waters doeth return into the sea. All things that are of the earth shall return to the earth again, and that which is of the waters do return into the sea, man. All bribery and injustice shall be blotted out, but true dealing shall endure forever. And that's what this so-called white man, the devil, pretty much that the Bible speaks of, man. The deceiver of many nations that has pretty much bribed his way through various pretty much various empires and promising, peace and promising, goodly words, as the scripture says, sweet words or comely words or, speaking great things, man, as you see it doing today with this AI system. And see, this is the thing. We're to really just warn you and prepare your mind for what, to help you understand, I guess you could say, what the spiritually, what this devil is really at, where his head is at, because spiritually, this man is the devil, man. And, and every time we tell you these things, prophets bring it out. The brothers, elders, people end up looking shocked, like what, But see, this time is going to be a little different because the Lord is going to pull his prophets from the streets, man. And they are going to be looking for answers. So it's good to get this now while you can. Let me just go into a few of these articles, not all of them, because it really shows that nothing has changed. No, I'm gonna start off with this. Hold on. I'm gonna start off with this. If you know anything about Constantine, he was the pretty much the soul and the the foundation of what modern day Christianity will become. In the Catholic, Roman Catholic Church, and all those other different denominations. It says Constantine the Great's role in the Byzantine Empire was foundational. He established it by the founding Constable as a new imperial capitalist. It says shifted the empire's religious landscape by favoring and financially supporting Christianity, man. So pretty much he funded, ideas. He funded philosophies rooted in Christianity, right? Which is Christian values, which is doctrines of devils. We understand history, you know. Just been doing this because I'm putting everything together, speeding it up. And see, we know they're doing that. They made great promises, even with the doctrine of discovery coming over here to the Native Americans. They made great promises. They promised them peace and, you know, uh, land, I guess you could say prosperous lands and this and all these different things, factories. And what did they do when they told them no, that they were good with their lifestyles, they was good with what they had, they raped, robbed, murdered, they started doing writing unrighteous decrees and spreading lies, and lies ruining towns, ruining cities. Busybody, pretty much writing treaties to different chiefs, getting them to fight each other, which were lies. Pretty much signaling that they were going to invade you here, they were going to invade you there, and pretty much sparking, those tactics that they use to spark mobs against each other. It's the same thing that they did to the Native. They're not calling the Native Americans mob, but you got to look at these tactics that's used. It's the same thing that's used. It's going to be used today. The problem now, you know, because now people are really dependent on that system, man. They're completely dependent on that system. I pretty much asked Google, it says large. I asked them, how did large empires, manipulate the economy? How did large empires manipulate the economy and cause the economy to fall? That's what I really want to answer, but I, shorten it up. It says large empires manipulate the economy through practices like debasing currency, pretty much making it the sole, the sole survivor. Like you can only buy or sell in this country using this or using this or using this. For example, the U.S. dollar, you can only buy or sell goods in the United States with the United States dollar. Colombia would be the Colombia peso. Uh, China would be Chinese yen. You know, it says imposing taxes. Yeah, I mean, obviously. And what do they do while imposing these taxes? Okay, so you're putting into a system that's supposed to, provide you with healthcare, great healthcare, provide you with stable living, provide you with truth and education and protection and all those different things, because that's what you're paying into the system for, right? But we know that these things only, through discrimination and through practices is unlawful practice. These things really only apply for a certain group of people. What they're doing is what you're seeing now is a separation. There's going to be no middle class. You're either going to be a part of the rich or you're going to be a part of the poor, and that's just another tactic that was used, as we said, as I keep saying in the videos, to pretty much implement, to get mobs to go in there and jab each other so they can implement martial law. And Jake is gonna fall for these things. Why? Because they put more they hope in the money into this system, being their government, they love their damn devil. They love their oppressor, man. So this is what they're gonna fall for when these things actually come down the pipe, man. It says extracting resources from conquered territories. And that's how do they do that? Through wars. It says using propaganda to enforce economic policies. Propaganda being the media, the left and the right going against each other, and they'll write a whole law. All it takes is for 100 million, 100 billion people to see it. Not 100 billion, not even 100 billion people on Earth, but 100 million, billion people to start seeing something, and they'll go ahead and write whatever it is into effect, man. For the simple fact that it's for the simple fact that it helps them, these different people save face, man. We just seen them, Trump just got rid of the whole Epstein case, everything when he was found to be attached to that, a lot of those documents, and that's just one of many, you know. So they don't play by the same rules that you got to play under, and that's a fact. It says these practices, while effective, I'm skipping down, reading on. It says these practices, while effective in the short term, they says they can create severe eternal issues that contribute in empire's decline, man. Such as inflation, you spending too much, or you spending too little, but you're bringing in too much. You're printing too much money, but you're not spending enough. So then you have to end up getting, because nobody's able to accumulate those money, because really what it is, you start getting rid of the workers or blue collar. You start replacing these different jobs, these different markets that people are used to. You start replacing them with you know robots, for example. Now you got the market of the internet. It's more digital. It's more of a digital market now. So you don't really need too many workers now. You're interfering with how certain people are used to making money, how certain people are used to moving. But then in doing that, the revenue of everything is going up. So these large corporations are not going to suffer for that. you know, they're either going to end up moving their company somewhere else, or they're going to end up, because you got to think these large corporations is why America is as stable as it is. You know, they bring in most of the goods that over. They set up these organizations. They use wars, whatever. They take over territories. These organizations are what brings in, the goods, the metals, the stuff you use in your medical facilities. The stuff you use to make your books. To make your paper, to make your everything. This is all through wars and pretty much, taking over different territories, man, and setting up corporations. See, so when you take over, you need to get rid of these big corporations. You're essentially getting rid of these big global powerhouses, man. And who gets affected by that the most? Jake. You're gonna be the one. We're gonna be the ones. The low man, the little guy, whatever you want to call him, is gonna be the one that gets affected by it the most. Because now these corporations being taxed. As he talks about with tariffs, as it's going to say, being taxed with tariffs and pretty much the different regulate laws that's coming into play now. They're gonna look at that shit and they're gonna just start getting rid of a lot of you. So now you don't have a lot of workers, you don't have a lot of people on the market, so there's not a lot of spending going on because this is a consumer-based economy. So what you put into the U.S. dollar is what helps the economy stay stable. You know, so now that there's not a lot of spending because not a lot of people's making money, but there's a lot of printing. They're going. That's why they're talking about making this thing go digital. At the end of the day, they just put everybody on a universal based income. You know. They can get rid of all of that shit. Now you don't have to worry about these big corporations, take pretty much forcing you to have to obey or bow down to their regulations as far as spending goes, is lack of a better word, because the price of their goods is going to go up tremendously. So there's not going to be a lot of obviously not a lot of spending going on now. It's starting to affect people more and more and more from your cell phone plans, you know your gas, your radio, your YouTube music, all of that, man. So because of, it really is all bread and circus, man. They feed you, they manipulate you until they get you, and that's why separating yourself from this world and the mind is important to get you into a stable and not a stable, but get you all comfortable, get you all nice and fattened up, you know, and then they bring in the hammer. And then because you want to, go back to being nice and fattened up, that hammer, which probably won't even last 2 days, you're quick to do that. At that point, you're already in the mindset, oh, I miss my old life, man. And this is why, man. Let's get some more verses, man. It's Micah 2. Oops. It's Micah 2 and 7. Let's start at verse 1. It says, woe unto them that devise iniquity and work evil upon their beds when the morning is light. They practice it because it is in the power of their hand. It says, they covet fields and they take them by violence, and houses, and they take them away, so that they oppress a man in his house, even a man in his heritage, man. And that's what this devil has done pretty much all over the world. Not even just, we're not talking about just slavery. We're talking about all throughout history. His track record is rooted in this, man. You know, and then the controlled opposition, which is terms that I'm pretty. You've been following the brothers or elders, whatever. You understand what controlled opposition is. You present a problem, you create a problem, you present a solution, you bring in the solution, and then everybody happy. but they don't realize that they pretty much sold themselves to the devil with bargaining with that solution. And that's the same thing when he brings out this RFID microchip. It's the same process. Now we don't know everything. You don't know how everything is going to play out. I mean, I think it's all going to happen simultaneously. You don't know exactly, but you should just expect chaos, man. What does chaos look like? You know, like 9/11 or something. It said, "Therefore, thus saith the Lord, behold, against this family do I devise evil, man." And these are wealthy oppressors, man. It's talking about those that sit on high. They can pretty much devise iniquity, but like it says, upon their beds, they don't have to work for nobody. They can really touch of a button. They already know where you at. They got a satellite GPS. Find anybody in the world like Cerebro or some shit, man, with a Palantir system they're trying to implement to be able to track you and put you, on that social credit score system as well. So Palantir is not as new facial recognition. So everywhere you go, you're being monitored. Your social credit score going up and down. Man, look, these devils are crazy, man. It says, from which ye shall not remove your necks, neither shall ye go haughty, for this time is evil, man. It says, in that day shall one take up a parable against you and lament with a doleful lamentation. So, it say we utterly be spoiled. It says, he hath changed the portion of my people. How have he removed it from me, turned away? He said, he have divided our fields, man. And that's what the Lord is doing to you devils, man. To you pretty much, you oppressors, you who are pretty much taking the field, you pretty much taking over the world through your left hand policies, man. Your ignorance, of the pretty much your rule over the poor. And we know that the Lord, He's nigh unto the poor, man, especially those that are of a contrite spirit, man. As it is written, man, when the wicked are rule, the people must, let me just go ahead and continue to get it. We just stop talking, let the scriptures talk. Verses Proverbs 29:1, it says, he says that is being reproved hard in his hard in his neck, and shall suddenly be destroyed. It says, and that without a remedy, man. And that's pretty much, the 2/3 of our people, as we're still trying to, send these warnings out to you to depart from the ways of the wicked. But they're going to continue until the wheels fall off. It says, when the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice. But when the wicked bear rule, the people mourn, man. And that's pretty much, the state of the people now. And people are pretty much caught on to, the devil's ways, or, their philosophies, or pretty much, their methods, and the pretty much controlling a population, man. So it's no secret. Continuing on, taxation and tributes. Empires impose heavy taxes on their citizens and demand tribute. What is tribute? Paying you paying for your living conditions. You gotta live in your apartment. You gotta, if you got car expenses, you paying for things that's sufficient for you in your life, man. You can have a decent. Not saying you can't have a decent life in the truth, but a lot of those, delicacies come with a sacrifice. You gotta, you know, you want a car, it comes with, you gotta pay more. You gotta be willing to cough up more money. Insurance, now you need insurance in cars, because insurance they make money off of pretty much chaos, right? So now because Jake, riding fast and all the car crash, driving drunk, and all that different type of propaganda they pushed on the people. Now they can insure you. Now you gotta have insurance for others' mistakes. You know, I don't know if you had to have insurance. I can't think of a time was past the 40s if you had insurance when they had vehicles or some shit. But it's beyond me. But just making a point just on how they use, propaganda, and they use, situations. Then they'll say that you're the problem, but you promote this shit though. You promote living, you only look at that YOLO like lifestyle in the media. You know, like I was saying, there would be a time where little kids, you couldn't buy no infant game, bro. Kids wouldn't be able to play no infant game. Now these kids playing infant games, and they trying to reenact a lot of that shit in real life. These niggas are not in their right mind, man, and neither are the children because of these motherfuckers, man. These people are not in their right state of mind, man. Let's keep reading though. Land management empires can acquire and redistribute vast amounts of land, man. Yeah, through war, and then then they'll say we'll give you this land. We'll pretty much you take over, build condos and real estate and all kind of shit. And then now you're under the jurisdiction of who won that territory. So if they want to tax the hell out of you for that land, according to whatever their law constitutes, they can do that shit. It says it says in the late Roman empires, large landowners used legal loopholes to turn their estates into semi-independent economic entities. Man, wow! It says weakening the central government's control and tax base. So pretty much, there's only one or very few, if not very few, entities that you're gonna have to go through to pretty much get the okay that you can live on this land or you can stay. Saying the policies is made on this land, so on and so forth. You know, which is a way of control, man. Another form of control. But see, like it is written, man. I mean, obviously, there's always gonna be somebody in control, man, whether it be good or bad. But see, the problem is that the wicked is in control right now. That's why we keep telling you not to not to put too much value into that, not to put, value into how much that's able to help you out right now. More so value into the Lord. And, while I'm at it, before let me get that scripture real quick. Because, if you're serving one or the other, one of them's going to help you. The other one's not going to help you in the time of trouble. It says Matthew 6:24 says, no man can serve two masters, for either he will hate the one and love the other, or else he will hold to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and mammon. Now, we understand that, this here is just another way of paying tribute in the economy. Well, pretty much in the situation we're in right now. But we know that this isn't the mark of the beast. This is just their form of paying tribute. That's the modern day coin. Before I get that, let me show you something. I was getting into. You you understand, coins and the faces on coins, how that when you understand, how that pretty much dominated movements and empires, man. You see that, to have a face on a coin or do you have your image on a coin, that pretty much brought the value up because that face or that individual, it showed who they was in representation to. It showed what their allegiance was. And if you was an allegiance to a powerful empire, that had, goods and markets and resources and all of like America, the American dollar, right? All these different goods and resources and this and that, right? But there's a dark side to it, obviously. But pretty much what I'm saying is, if your face or your name was attached to something as such, for you being Constantine, this empire's coin, you know, you would go to his empires and you would be able to acquire some of the best of the best. You'll be able to to train the best of the best, acquire the best of the best with goods and services. So knowledge was a tool used to trade for back then too. So services included knowledge. Like I said, you can train with the best of the best. You can learn from the best of the best. You know, you can have some of the best, products, which was, coveted and stolen, obviously, through wars and ill deceit, pretty much, as the scriptures talks about. But continuing on, see when you can read this on your own as well. It'll be good for you. Imperial authority says the coins depicted in Constantine's likeness and titles, reinforcing his authority and imperial power. And that's where you had those wars between the religion and wars between the people, because really it was neither one of theirs. It wasn't the Muslim or the Byzantines. The land of being in the Holy Land, the Roman Catholics. It wasn't neither supposed to be under neither one of them, which was pretty much Christianity having their, differences as well. Christianity and the Roman Catholic started to fall apart. And then, the Muslim, religion, obviously started a war with them because the values started to change and differences starting to, spark. Really all of those are rooted in evil, you know, because truth be told, Constantine was a sun worshiper. But anyways, yeah, you can read that on your own, man. That was the point behind coins, man. Because you gotta to understand, I'm bring this all together, man. The Lord tells us to depart from, pretty much the mindset and the philosophies and the ways of this world, right? So knowing that you have to use these things but not to abuse it, man. You should, find a balance of you working in this world, but not too much of a balance where you're overly dependent. Where if shit when hit the feds right now, you'd be okay. You know that you'll be okay. That's where you not based upon what money, because it tells you, the gold shall fail them. And let me see, Isaiah 31. The title says, "Help not in Egypt, but in God." It says the frugality and the NFT, the futility of relying on Egypt, man. The futility, man. Start at verse 1. It says, "Woe unto them that go unto Egypt for help, that stay on horses, that trust in chariots, because they are many, and their horsemen because they are very strong, but they look not unto the Holy One of Israel, neither do they seek the Lord," man. And this is spiritual Egypt. We understand that, America, aka Babylon, Mystery Babylon the Great, the policies that they push, the philosophies they push, the military might, obviously, the National Guard being sent to different areas, the fear that they can institute on the people or people in general around the world. He calls us, because man causes fire to rain down from heaven. The type of nukes and so on and so forth that they can use, man. The tactics, all of that, robotics, weaponry. This man is the damn devil, man. His gift was a sword, so you got to think he's a master killer. It says, yet he said, yet also he also is wise. It says, and bring evil, and will bring evil, and will not call back his words, man, but will arise against the house of evildoers and against the help of them that work iniquity, man. And that's what our Lord is going to do. It's what he promised he was going to do, man. He's going to free us from the yokes. He's, spiritually, that we're bound in it from these bodies, but also, physically, man, our people being free. And a lot of, Jake's just going to be put out their misery, man. They don't know that they're in shame, walking in shame because they walk in darkness, man. Us being pulled out of that. So, to help, edify the flock, to help you pull out of that darkness into the light, man. It says, now Egyptians are men, it says, and not God. It says, their horses flesh and not spirit. It says, when the Lord shall stretch out his hand, both he that helpeth shall fall, and he that hopeth shall fall down, man. And they all shall fail together, man. It says, and for the Lord, it says, for thus have the Lord spoken unto me, like as a lion and the young lion roaring at his prey, man. When the multitude of shepherds is called forth against him, he will not be afraid of their voice, nor abase himself for the noise of them. So shall the Lord of hosts come down to fight for the Mount Zion and for the hill thereof, man. Skipping on down to verse 7. It says, for in that day every man shall cast away his idols of silver and his idols of gold, which are which your own hands have made unto you for a sin, man. And truth be told, you analyzing that symbolically and spiritually, man. What do men trust in the most? What is mankind putting they trust in, man? Not just gold and silver, man. You have your idols, drugs, that's an idol, you know, women, that's an idol, women using kids as a crutch. That's a very twisted way of using children, but even children are preyed upon, and this kind of because of that, you know, idols and pretty much the love of money. First Timothy 6:10, it says, "For the love of money is the root of all evil." The love of money is the root, not money itself. The love of mammon. You love mammon more than God. You put mammon over the Heavenly Father, and that's how money. Money has been used to facilitate and twist, morals and values and the way of thinking. Pretty much in a situation, you can use money to get whatever you want, man. Somebody would totally forget about their morals, their values, they forget about, their decency just for money. A lot of people would, depending on your price, man. But see, this is why this truth got to be priceless, man. Which while some coveted after, they erred from the faith, man. Because you start coveting when you feel like you're not getting enough, or you feel like the Lord hasn't blessed you enough, or whatever. You start making excuses on why. You know, even if you're in, for those Jakes in the room, man, they covered after each other, man. You know, we don't have we don't have enough. I don't know. It could be over anything, man. Just little example. Jake, fucking. You can have a car pull up right next to you. You know, y'all have the. I mean, the car might cost roughly about the same. You know, but because of what he got in the car, you coveting after, whether it be a female, you know what I'm saying? You coveting after what he wants, but y'all driving the same shit. You still getting blessed, man. You still got a car. You still got a home to go back to. You still got what you need. But because you don't have what he has in that moment, you want to take what he wants in that moment, or what he's earned, or what he has in that moment. That's another just small example. Just coveting, man. And see, this culture in America is rooted in that type of thinking, that bullshit. It says they have erred from the faith. They pretty much giving into that. You know, I fucking I'm just go back in the world. I'm just go active being a nigga, man. It's easier being a nigga. It says and pierce themselves through with many sorrows, man. But thou, O man of God, man, man of the Lord, man, flee from these things and follow after righteousness. It says godliness, faith, love, and patience and meekness, man. See, that's the good fight of faith. Is keeping your integrity in this thing, man. Now, it's understanding this. It's another article I was looking at. Let me see. This is it's on the bookings. It says the traditional post-war debate between left and right-wing politics rested heavily on the issue of free markets versus state intervention, man. Because big businesses wanted to own their own enterprises, man. They wanted to implement, because that was a way for them to implement control, man. All those different commercials and indoctrinations and philosophies and what they call it, subliminal messages they were sending through, your TV, which is another form of MK Ultra, and using frequency to manipulate the minds of the people. Yeah, that really happened, and they're still doing it today, and it's still working. It says the left wing group argued that capitalism creates inequality. It says, and thus requires, capitalism, meaning, businesses, markets, businesses, living in, nice homes and nice areas versus, those living in impoverished homes and impoverished areas, man. And pretty much having to feeling some type of way because these big businesses, they working hard for these businesses, but they're not able to receive the same benefits because they're not getting paid enough, or they realize that capitalism was a way to keep you poor and keep them rich. And then that's that middleman group, that middle group, which was brought in. That wasn't for you either. Affirmative action, that was for white women or other nations for the most part. Jake was still, you still had the oppression even of your own people. That goes back to from the beginning of the topic, man. Using two opposing ideas, using two policies, two things I guess you said documentation, whether it be documentation or ideology or the narrative, controlling the narrative, two things to go against each other to achieve this one result. And that's what this is what Satan is trying to do, you know. And that's where he's going to try to implement, that universal basic income, man. I'm gonna get that real quick, man. That's what it's gonna look like. What is a universal basic income? Universal basic income is a social welfare proposal that would provide all citizens with a regular minimum income payment regardless of employment or income status, man. It has no strings attached payments, meaning there are no conditions or requirements to receive it. The amount would be independent of any other income, man. So that's pretty much, this is their solution. The world, the global solution, man. Pretty much Trump then signed over to this plan, man. He done signed over the American people to this plan. They don't realize it yet. It's just now we looking at the stages. We're getting into the stages of, martial law, pretty much about to be implemented. Him rousing up Jake. Now women are coming on more and more coming on the podcast and saying that they want a man, this and that. The destabilization of the economy and security. Saying we want peace, we want safety, we want to go back to our normal lives. Like I said, it's gonna get worse. It's gonna get worse, man. And then there's gonna be that light at the tunnel. That we have a solution type of moment. And then what are they gonna do at that point? Most people are gonna take the chip, man. They're gonna take the RFID microchip, which is the mark of the beast, man, because they're gonna want to go back to their lifestyles. They're not gonna be ready, man. You know, and the Lord's so cold with it, man. People, what? TikTok was on for like what? TikTok was down for a day. You see how people was reacting. How much more when you start to see them where they can't buy the food that they want anymore. They can't, receive the type of protection. And he's slowly but surely weeding certain people out, man. You're gonna see how greedy people get, how greedy people are. I remember when COVID happened, the shutdown, people, you can't come out. I really seen how greedy motherfuckers are, man. Yeah, all the toilet paper was gone in Walmart, and guy bought all the fucking toilet paper down there. It was telling me, man, I bought ads, I'm gonna be selling toilet paper. Bro, I'm telling you, man, capitalism is whether you rich or you poor, man, it don't matter. The mindset of motherfuckers in this country is what's really done tore this bitch apart, man. It's what's tearing this bitch apart, you know. And that's why I made this, today, just kind of get into that, man, where we're going. I didn't get into all the articles I want to get into, but I got into quite a bit due to other reasons. But at the end of the day, just understand it, man. This system that they're going to implement, yes, it's RFID microchip. It's all a part of control. It's all a part of control, man. You start spending too much, and say you do take the chip, you start spending too much. Your lifestyle is affecting others' lifestyles, or that social credit system. You don't like what you're doing. They can cut you off, or through that social credit system, what are they gonna do? They're gonna start lowering your credit score. I mean, you're not gonna be able to go into certain spots for a certain amount of time, that type of shit, or you can't go be out a certain amount of time, putting curfews on you. Man, it's digital grid is gonna be like this fucking devil playing The Sims in real life, man. This motherfucker's crazy, man. So I just wanted to bring that out, man. Whoever it may concern, may the Lord be with you and continue to be edified, man. Call Allah, Yamla, Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem, Rakah, Badash. Shalom unto the hopefully elect.